In the mind of a man, emotions often exist like rivers beneath ice, flowing, alive, and full of movement, yet concealed beneath the surface of composure. From an early age, many men are taught to separate themselves from the language of emotion. They learn to replace tears with silence, fear with control, vulnerability with distance. Society rarely rewards emotional openness in men. Instead, it praises restraint, discipline, and stoicism. But what is often misunderstood is that silence does not mean emptiness, and control does not mean detachment. Emotional repression is not the absence of feeling. It is the quiet struggle to contain what was never allowed to be expressed. When a man misses someone deeply, he rarely articulates it through words. His longing manifests through subtle behavior. A delayed message, a revisited memory, a shift in his gaze when something reminds him of you. To others, he appears calm, collected, and indifferent. But inside, the energy of his thoughts circles endlessly around the absence he feels. He remembers the way your laughter sounded when you were together. The small moments that seemed unimportant, but now echo with weight. His rational mind tells him to move on, yet the heart resists. This is the conflict of masculine conditioning, to feel deeply, but act as if untouched. Repression is not a sign of emotional emptiness, it is a learned method of survival. Men are often trained to navigate the world through logic, to build walls of reason against waves of emotion. But these walls, though protective, are not permanent. They merely delay the expression of what is human. When he misses you, he does not shout it to the world, because doing so would break the structure he has built around his identity. He channels that energy into distraction, into work, into movement, into anything that does not require him to confront his vulnerability. Yet the body remembers what the mind denies. Restlessness becomes his language, insomnia becomes his confession, and silence becomes his prayer. The psychology of male emotional repression is rooted in the fear of exposure. To express longing is to admit attachment, and to admit attachment is to risk loss. So he hides it. He hides the softness that lives within him, fearing it will be misunderstood or exploited. But repression does not erase the emotion. It only compresses it deeper into the subconscious. There it begins to shape his thoughts, his reactions, his choices. He may withdraw, not because he does not care, but because caring feels like surrender. He may act indifferent, not because he feels nothing, but because feeling everything at once would overwhelm him. This is the paradox of the masculine heart, capable of immense love, yet afraid of its own depth. When a man misses you, his actions may appear inconsistent. He might reach out one day and disappear the next. He may seem distant in words but present in small gestures. This inconsistency is not manipulation, it is confusion. The mind is trying to maintain control while the heart quietly revolts. Missing someone opens a space within him that he does not know how to fill. He tries to occupy it with logic, but emotion cannot be reasoned away. So he builds a quiet resistance inside himself. He represses not because he wants to, but because he does not know another way to feel safely. If you observe closely, you will notice that when a man misses you, his energy changes before his behavior does. He may grow quieter in conversation, his thoughts wandering elsewhere. He may start listening to the songs you once played together, not consciously choosing them but drawn to the familiar comfort they bring. His dreams may replay moments that his waking self avoids. He may check your profile but never like a post, because expression would make his longing visible. In these small, hidden acts lies the truth. He feels, but he fears the vulnerability that feeling exposes. Emotional repression is not strength, it is the mask of strength. True strength lies in awareness, in the courage to face what arises without judgment. But for many men, this awareness is buried under years of conditioning. The fear of emotional exposure becomes so ingrained that even when the heart aches, the lips remain closed. The missing becomes an inner dialogue that no one hears. He asks himself questions he never voices. Does she think of me? Did she notice my absence? Should I reach out? And in that silence, his longing matures into introspection. He begins to understand the weight of emotion not through expression, but through endurance. The most profound emotions are often unspoken. When he misses you, he might not say it, but it shapes his day in invisible ways. He checks his phone more often, waiting for a message that may never come. He revisits places tied to memory, standing still as if the air still carries your presence. He may find himself replaying conversations, searching for meaning in the pauses, in the laughter, in the unspoken words. The mind resists admitting the ache, but the body feels it. His chest tightens when something reminds him of you. His breath shortens when he tries to suppress what arises. Inside him, there is a quiet battle between the desire to express and the discipline to contain. The discipline wins most days, but not all. There are moments when the longing leaks through. In the tone of his voice, in the way he lingers on your name, in the stillness that follows your absence. Emotional repression does not erase love, it only delays its acknowledgement. What he hides from others, he still feels in solitude. When the world grows silent, when the distractions fade, that is when he truly feels your absence. Men are often misunderstood not because they feel less, but because they express differently. Their emotions do not flow outward, they flow inward. They carry their missing like a secret weight, pretending to walk lightly while every step echoes with remembrance. And though the surface may remain calm, beneath it lies an ocean of feeling, waiting for permission to rise. Before a man ever admits he misses you, before he ever sends a message or reaches out, his energy begins to change. The shift is subtle, almost imperceptible to the ordinary eye, but if you have ever been deeply connected to someone, you can feel it. Energy communicates long before language does. It moves through the unseen currents between two people who have shared emotion, time, and presence. When he begins to miss you, his internal world alters, his focus, his restlessness, his silence, and even if no words are spoken, that shift ripples outward and becomes something you can sense without understanding how. Human connection does not rely only on speech, it is built upon resonance. Every emotion emits a vibration, and missing someone carries its own unique frequency, a blend of longing, memory, and unfulfilled attention. When a man misses you, he unconsciously sends that energy toward you. It is not intentional, not deliberate, but it happens naturally, the same way gravity pulls objects toward the earth. His thoughts begin to orbit around you. He wonders where you are, what you are doing, whether you ever think of him too. These silent thoughts are not contained within him, they expand, they travel, and they reach the space between you like echoes of a whisper. You might feel it without understanding why. You suddenly think of him out of nowhere. You sense his presence in your mind. You feel the emotional pull even when months or miles stand between you. That is energy speaking before words have the courage to. The body often perceives what the intellect cannot explain, an invisible signal, a subtle tug at the awareness, a shift in the emotional field. When he misses you, his energy softens. The walls that once felt rigid begin to weaken. His defenses drop slightly, and though he may not act upon it yet, the shift within him is already in motion. Psychology explains this through the mind-body connection. The more someone focuses on a thought or emotion, the more neural and energetic attention flows in that direction. Missing someone activates both emotional memory and attachment centers in the brain. It changes mood, expression, and even body language. You may notice his eyes linger longer when your name comes up, or his tone softens when recalling something you shared. These are energetic cues translated into physical form. He might not intend to reveal anything, but the truth of energy is that it always leaks through the body before the mouth speaks. A man who is missing you begins to move differently. His rhythm is no longer steady. He pauses more often. He gets lost in his thoughts, revisiting conversations that no longer exist in the present. He remembers small moments, a look you gave, a word you spoke, the way you laughed at something he said. He doesn't consciously decide to remember them, they simply rise uninvited. That rising is energy calling attention to what still holds meaning. His heart begins to pull at his awareness, guiding it back toward what it misses, what it once felt at peace within. In spiritual understanding, everything is energy before it becomes matter, vibration before it becomes word. When someone misses you, their vibration shifts toward longing, and that shift subtly reaches your energetic field. That is why sometimes two people can think of each other at the same moment, message each other simultaneously, or feel an unexplained emotion without contact. It is the unseen communication of energy aligning before physical expression. When a man is in this state, his behavior starts to contradict his words. He may say he is fine, that he is focused, that he is moving on, but his presence tells another story. You can hear it in the pauses, in the tone, in the silence between his sentences. Energy never lies. It reveals what words attempt to conceal. He may start appearing in places he once avoided, drawn unconsciously toward familiarity. He may check your social presence but never engage. He may bring up your name in conversation casually, pretending indifference. But the repetition exposes attachment. When a man misses you, he begins to orbit your energy again, not out of weakness but out of resonance. The connection he once shared with you becomes a magnetic field pulling him back toward its center. He resists, but resistance only intensifies the force. The more he tries to distract himself, the louder the inner calling becomes. You might feel his energy even before he acts on it. You might dream of him, sense his thoughts, or feel sudden emotions that don't belong to your current moment. These are not coincidences, they are transmissions of emotional frequency. The human heart is a transmitter more powerful than any spoken language. When two people have once shared emotional depth, their hearts remember the vibration of that connection. So when one begins to miss the other, the signal travels along that memory line like a current reawakening an old pathway. Men, often trained to conceal their emotions, experience this shift internally. They don't talk about it, they don't analyze it aloud. They feel it as tension, as distraction, as a restlessness that has no clear cause. The energy of missing someone creates imbalance because something once flowing outward now remains contained. He wants to reach out but holds back. He wants to express but suppresses. That suppression builds energy, and energy needs movement, so it leaks through action, posture, silence, and breath. The body begins to communicate what the voice refuses to. Even when distance grows, energetic communication persists. It's why a message sometimes arrives at the moment you think of it, why a memory resurfaces without reason, why emotion revisits uninvited. When a man misses you, his inner world shifts its attention toward you. His thoughts, emotions, and energy become aligned in your direction. You might not see it in his words, but you can feel it. It manifests as a pull, as an intuitive awareness, as a sense of presence even in absence. Energy precedes everything. Before the call, before the text, before the confession, there is the shift. The quiet restlessness in his tone, the way he hesitates before speaking, the way he remembers details he once ignored. His attention begins to move toward you, and where attention goes, energy follows. His words may remain guarded, but his energy is already speaking, reaching, remembering, missing. When a man begins to miss someone, an invisible war unfolds within him, a silent battle between his mind and his heart. The mind desires order, logic, and conclusion. It wants to understand why something happened, to categorize it neatly, to find closure so it can move on. The heart, however, operates on a different rhythm. It does not care for reason or resolution. It only understands feeling, memory, and presence. The mind tries to close the chapter, but the heart keeps rereading the same lines, not because it refuses to let go, but because it is still seeking connection within what once was. The mind speaks the language of control. It tells him to focus, to be rational, to forget what cannot be changed. It tries to create a narrative that explains the distance. Maybe she was not right for me. Maybe this was meant to happen. Maybe I am better without her. It builds these mental walls as a form of protection, convincing him that detachment equals strength. But the heart does not obey these constructions. It continues to feel in silence, beneath the surface of logic. It remembers the warmth of shared laughter, the tone of her voice, the energy of her presence. It clings not to the image of the person, but to the feeling of connection that once brought peace. Psychology describes this tension as cognitive, emotional dissonance, when thoughts and feelings no longer align. The mind wants to move forward, the heart still lingers. For men, this dissonance often grows louder because they are conditioned to trust the mind more than the heart. They are taught that emotions are distractions, that thinking clearly is maturity. So when they miss someone, they try to reason their way out of it. They analyze, they justify, they explain. But emotion does not dissolve through analysis, it deepens when resisted. The more he tries to think his way through missing you, the more his heart reminds him that connection cannot be reduced to logic. When he misses you, his mind becomes restless. It replays events not for nostalgia, but for understanding. It searches for clues, for mistakes, for something that will make sense of the emptiness he feels. But missing someone is not a problem to be solved, it is an experience to be felt. The mind cannot grasp this truth, so it turns the absence into questions. Should I have said something different? Did she care as much as I did? Is this feeling mutual? These thoughts loop endlessly, not because he lacks answers, but because the mind cannot accept the open, ended nature of love. It craves closure, but love does not conclude neatly. It dissolves slowly, sometimes incompletely, leaving traces that linger in the spaces between memory and longing. The heart, on the other hand, resists closure because its purpose is connection. While the mind looks for endings, the heart seeks continuity. It does not seek to forget, it seeks to understand through feeling. When he misses you, the heart does not care if the relationship ended. It still remembers the vibration of closeness, the emotional safety, the small moments of shared silence that spoke more than words. For the heart, connection is not about physical proximity, but energetic remembrance. It can still feel attached to someone even after time, distance, or silence. The heart does not follow the calendar of logic. It beats according to memory. This is why he might act detached yet feel unsettled. His mind may convince him that it is over, but his heart still sends signals through dreams, through sudden waves of emotion, through the way certain songs or scents evoke her presence. These are not accidents. They are the heart's way of keeping connection alive. The more he tries to suppress it, the more it finds subtle ways to resurface. Missing someone becomes a quiet haunting, not by the person themselves, but by the energy of what once connected them. Men often confuse closure with healing. They believe that once something ends, the feeling should end too. But the heart does not work that way. Healing is not the same as forgetting. Healing is acceptance of what was and peace with what remains. The mind wants to close doors, the heart wants to keep them open enough for understanding. When he misses you, he feels torn between these two forces, one urging him to detect, the other reminding him that to feel deeply is part of being alive. In his quiet moments, when distractions fade and silence fills the room, the heart begins to speak more clearly. It does not use words, it uses sensations. A tightening in the chest, a wave of melancholy, a sudden urge to reach out. These are the messages of connection. The heart still senses the invisible bond, even if logic says it should no longer exist. The mind argues, trying to dismiss it as nostalgia, but the heart knows better. It recognizes energy, not explanations. He may find himself drawn to familiar places, revisiting memories unconsciously. The cafe you once went to, the song you used to play, the scent that lingers in the air, all become doorways through which connection re-enters his awareness. His mind might try to rationalize it, calling it coincidence, but the heart knows it is resonance. Energy always seeks the places it once felt harmony. The mind resists this pull because it fears vulnerability, but the heart surrenders to it because it understands that connection is not weakness, it is truth. This inner conflict shapes his behavior. Some days he may seem cold, distant, almost indifferent, the mind in control. Other days, a single memory may soften him completely, the heart breaking through the surface. To others, his actions may seem inconsistent, but within him they are perfectly aligned with his dual nature. The mind closest to protect, the heart opens to remember. Between these two, he oscillates, never fully one or the other. If you could listen beyond his words, you would hear both voices speaking, the mind saying it is time to move on, and the heart whispering that something still lingers. When he misses you, he does not simply miss a person, he misses the version of himself that felt safe in that connection. He misses the ease of being understood without effort, the grounding presence that balanced his inner world. The mind cannot label that feeling, so it calls it confusion. But the heart knows it is not confusion, it is connection remembering itself. So he carries this duality quietly, living between logic and longing. The mind seeks closure because it wants peace. The heart seeks connection because it knows peace comes from feeling, not forgetting. When a man begins to miss someone, his first instinct is not to chase the emotion, but to retreat from it. This is not indifference, and it is not avoidance in its simplest form. It is a natural movement of masculine energy. Masculine energy, by its nature, seeks direction, clarity, and purpose. It processes life internally, in solitude, away from noise and interference. When emotion strikes deeply, when loss, longing, or love begins to stir within him, the masculine mind does not immediately express. It withdraws, not to disconnect, but to find understanding. This withdrawal is often misread as coldness, but beneath the still surface lies a quiet storm of processing, reflection, and inner recalibration. From an early age, men are conditioned to hold composure, to face challenges alone, to solve problems without displaying emotion. So when a man feels deeply, his instinct is to create space, space to think, space to feel, space to return to control. The feminine energy, when overwhelmed, tends to express outwardly, reaching for connection and communication to release what is felt. The masculine energy, on the other hand, turns inward, retreating to a psychological cave. It does not process emotion through dialogue but through distance. The silence becomes his sanctuary, the stillness his method of organization. When he misses you, he does not always reach out, not because the feeling is absent, but because he is trying to make sense of what it means. In psychology, this withdrawal is often described as emotional regulation through isolation. For the masculine mind, solitude provides safety. When emotions arise that threaten his sense of stability, he instinctively seeks separation from external influence to regain balance. He steps back, not to erase the feeling, but to confront it privately. This act of withdrawal is not rejection, it is reflection. His silence becomes a form of conversation with himself. He revisits memories, analyzes moments, and examines what he feels without interruption. The external world might see detachment, but inside him there is movement, the slow, deliberate turning of thought into understanding. When a man misses someone, this process becomes even more visible. He may stop texting, reduce interaction, or immerse himself in work or routine. These are not distractions born from disinterest. They are coping mechanisms designed to create emotional order. The masculine psyche often fears the intensity of unregulated emotion because it challenges his internal framework of control. Missing someone exposes vulnerability, a feeling of dependency, a recognition of emotional need. For someone raised to equate control with strength, that sensation feels destabilizing. So he steps away, creating distance not to forget you, but to remember himself within the emotion. During this phase of withdrawal, his energy may appear calm, but beneath the surface, there is friction. He questions his feelings, weighing them against reason. He tries to detach, but his mind circles back to the same memories. Your laughter, the tone of your voice, the energy you carried. He tries to convince himself that it's over, that he should move forward, but the more he resists the emotion, the deeper it roots itself. The masculine energy is structured, but emotion is fluid, and when structure meets fluidity, a transformation occurs. This transformation is uncomfortable, it requires surrender, something the masculine struggles to do easily. So he hides not to escape, but to rebuild his inner foundation before facing the world again. When he withdraws, his silence speaks volumes. Silence is his way of feeling without display, healing without explanation. He sits in his stillness, letting the echoes of memory pass through him. This is how masculine energy processes emotion, through containment, through quiet endurance, through the disciplined observation of his own inner world. His heart feels, but his mind must first understand what that feeling means. He might revisit the relationship in thought, dissecting what went wrong or what was left unsaid. But beneath that mental analysis lies something simpler and more human. He misses you, yet he cannot speak it until he makes peace with what that missing reveals about himself. Masculine withdrawal is not always a conscious choice, it is an instinctive one. The moment he feels emotionally exposed, his energy retreats into solitude. It's the same instinct that leads him to fix what's broken before discussing it, to think before expressing, to create order before revealing vulnerability. He does not yet trust the emotion until he can contain it. And because of this, many mistake his distance for indifference. But in truth, this distance is his way of protecting the connection, protecting it from his own confusion, his unprocessed emotions, his fear of saying something that could distort what he truly feels. In solitude, masculine energy finds its clarity. It allows him to examine the depth of his attachment without external noise. This process can take time, sometimes days, sometimes months. It is not about how long he stays silent, it's about what that silence is doing. During that period, he learns to confront his own emotional patterns, his fears of vulnerability, his desire for control. Missing someone becomes a teacher. It reveals the parts of him that still struggle to feel without analyzing. Slowly, he begins to integrate emotion into understanding. And once that integration happens, his energy begins to move again, toward reconnection, toward communication, toward balance. This withdrawal is sacred to masculine energy because it mirrors the cycles of nature. Just as night follows day, contraction follows expansion. Every time he reaches deeply into feeling, he must first retreat to regain his strength. It is in this retreat that he regenerates emotional power. His stillness is not stagnation, it is incubation. He is learning the weight of his emotions, understanding the truth of his longing, and preparing to emerge with clarity. When he reappears, he does so from a place of calm intention rather than impulsive emotion. You might feel his absence during this time, but absence does not equal disinterest. The masculine must return to stillness before he can express love again. His energy is structured around purpose, and until he understands the purpose behind what he feels, he cannot act. The quiet moments you interpret as distance are, for him, moments of alignment. He is sorting through the emotional chaos to find what is real. His way of healing is not through talking, but through being. He must sit with the achy until it becomes wisdom. So when a man misses you and disappears into silence, it is not the absence of emotion. It is the presence of emotion so intense that it requires solitude. It is his way of honoring what he feels without breaking under its weight. His withdrawal is not escape, it is processing, not rejection, but reflection. The masculine energy turns inward to face what the world cannot see, to balance what the heart has awakened within him, to find peace between the mind that seeks control and the heart that demands feeling. When a man begins to miss someone, memory becomes his way of reaching across the distance. He may not reach out through words or actions, but he travels inward. Through remembrance, through recollection, through the quiet revisiting of what once was. Memory becomes a bridge between the present and the past, between who he is now and who he was when he felt close to you. It is not simply nostalgia, it is the mind's way of keeping connection alive when physical presence has faded. The masculine heart often struggles to express emotion directly, so it finds refuge in memory, a realm where feeling is safe, private, and unchallenged by the expectations of the world. When he misses you, he does not always think in full scenes. Sometimes it comes in fragments. The sound of your laughter, the way your eyes caught the light, the scent that lingered after you left a room. These fragments appear unexpectedly, like waves that rise without warning. They come to him during still moments, driving alone at night, sitting in silence, hearing a familiar song. Each memory acts as a thread pulling him back to an emotional truth he once knew but can no longer touch. The mind cannot fully let go of what the heart has not released, so it builds bridges of memory to revisit the feeling of closeness. Psychologically, memory serves as both comfort and torment. It comforts because it allows the mind to relive what it misses, but it torments because it reminds him of what is gone. When he walks through memory, he is not trying to live in the past. He is trying to understand his present through what he once felt. Men often process emotion indirectly, not through discussion, but through reflection. So instead of saying, "I miss her," he replays the moment he first met you. Instead of admitting the achy, he thinks about how different life feels without your presence. Memory becomes his silent language of emotion. The masculine mind has a way of compartmentalizing, separating feelings from daily function. But memory disrupts that order. It slips through the cracks of logic and enters without permission. He might be at work, focused, composed, when suddenly a scent, a phrase, or a piece of music opens the floodgates. The moment arises uninvited, and for a few seconds, he is no longer where he stands, he is back where you once stood together. It's in those brief flashes that longing takes shape, not through words or reasoning, but through sensory remembrance. Memory allows him to feel safely what he cannot say aloud. When a man misses you, memory becomes his quiet meeting place. He may visit the cafe you both liked, not to relive the past, but to feel its echo. He might scroll through old photos, not out of obsession, but out of longing for the emotion they contain. To an outsider, this looks like sentimentality. To him, it is connection. Memory allows him to exist in two worlds at once, the outer world of logic and function, and the inner world of emotion and attachment. The bridge of memory allows him to step between these worlds without collapsing under the weight of feeling. In spiritual understanding, memory is not just a mental replay, it is an energetic imprint. Every interaction, every moment shared leaves an energetic trace in the consciousness. When two people have shared deep emotional resonance, their energies become intertwined within memory. So, when he remembers you, it is not simply thought. It is energy recalling energy. His heart recognizes the frequency of your presence and seeks it again, even if only in imagination. The bridge of memory is, therefore, not one built by thought alone but by vibration. It allows connection to exist beyond physical space, beyond time. As he walks across this bridge, he begins to notice how certain memories carry warmth while others carry pain. The warmth reminds him of the beauty of connection, the pain reminds him of its loss. Both coexist. The masculine energy does not dwell long in pain, it seeks to understand it. So he analyzes his memories, what went wrong, what he could have done differently, what he still feels unresolved about. But beneath that analysis, there remains something softer, something wordless, a quiet gratitude for having felt something real. Memory becomes the teacher that reveals not just what he lost, but what he was capable of feeling. Sometimes he will resist this bridge, refusing to cross it. He will distract himself, surround himself with noise, try to silence the inner pull. But memory is persistent. It does not fade on command. It returns through patterns, through dreams, through coincidences, through subtle emotional echoes that remind him he is still connected to something unseen. Even when he tries to bury it, memory finds new paths, new ways to surface. It waits patiently until he is still enough to feel it again. In this way, memory becomes both bridge and mirror, reflecting his emotional truth back to him no matter how far he runs. Through this bridge, he begins to rediscover pieces of himself. Missing someone has a way of awakening introspection. The more he revisits memories, the more he understands what those moments meant to him. Perhaps he realizes how safe he felt in your presence, how easily he could be himself without pretense. These realizations come not through direct thinking, but through revisiting the feeling held within memory. He begins to see that missing you is not just about you. It is also about reconnecting with the part of himself that felt alive through connection. The bridge of memory allows that rediscovery to happen gently, without judgment, without external pressure. He may never speak of this process. Most men will not. But internally, the bridge is always there. A quiet path that connects what is gone with what still lives inside him. He may walk it at night when the world is silent, or during moments when something familiar triggers the past. Each time he crosses, he feels both the ache of distance and the warmth of remembrance. That duality is what keeps the bridge alive. Memory does not erase loss, it transforms it into meaning. For the masculine soul, memory is not weakness, it is continuity. It allows him to carry what he cannot express, to keep alive what time has taken, to honor what shaped his emotional landscape. When he misses you, it is through memory that he reconnects, not to cling but to understand, to feel, to remember the quiet truth that love, once experienced, never truly disappears. Memory becomes the invisible thread that keeps the heart tethered to what once felt whole, the unseen bridge that allows feeling to travel even when presence cannot. When a man returns after distance, silence, or time apart, he does not come back as the same person who left. Something within him has shifted, quietly, deeply, often invisibly to the outside world, but profoundly felt within. The process of missing, reflecting, and withdrawing changes the structure of his inner world. It forces him to confront parts of himself that comfort never revealed. When he returns, he carries the imprint of that solitude, the lessons born from silence, and the weight of what absence has taught him. He does not return impulsively, he returns with awareness, with a deeper understanding of what connection means and what he once took for granted. The masculine journey through distance is not linear. It begins with confusion, moves into resistance, and slowly softens into acceptance. At first, he may try to escape what he feels. He distracts himself, convinces himself he is fine, immerses in routine to quiet the noise of emotion. But missing someone has a way of dissolving resistance. The longer he suppresses it, the louder it becomes. The silence starts speaking to him, not with words but with sensations. An emptiness that work cannot fill, a subtle ache that lingers beneath every success, a quiet realization that peace without connection feels incomplete. This is where change begins, not in the mind, but in the heart that starts to remember what truly mattered. Masculine energy is shaped by purpose and structure, and when it is disrupted by loss or longing, it is forced to re-evaluate what it's been building toward. During distance, he begins to see the difference between distraction and direction. He notices how much of his focus was outward. Achievements, control, external validation, and how little of it was inward. The absence of what he misses becomes a mirror reflecting back his emotional imbalance. He starts to see that strength without softness becomes rigidity, and independence without connection becomes emptiness. This inner realization humbles him. It softens his edges without weakening his core. In solitude, masculine energy undergoes transformation through stillness. He begins to feel the weight of silence, not as punishment, but as teaching. He reflects on what he said, what he didn't say, how he acted when emotions were high, and how he pulled away when vulnerability felt too raw. At first, these reflections sting. They expose his own avoidance, his fear of intimacy, his struggle to express tenderness without feeling exposed. But in time, awareness replaces shame. He begins to understand that missing someone is not weakness. It is acknowledgement of connection, a sign that his heart, despite his restraint, still beats with sensitivity. When he accepts that truth, something within him opens. When he returns, that opening is what makes him different. The man who once resisted feeling now recognizes its value. He comes back more deliberate, more grounded, more conscious of what presence means. He no longer confuses silence with strength or detachment with control. The version of himself that left may have been guarded, uncertain, or prideful. The version that returns carries humility, the humility that only reflection can teach. Missing you became his awakening, not through words, but through the experience of emptiness that taught him the weight of what he once held lightly. You may notice it not in grand gestures, but in subtleties. The way he listens more attentively, the way his eyes linger with sincerity, the way his tone softens when speaking. His return is not simply about coming back to you. It is about coming back to himself through you. The man who once ran from vulnerability has now learned that connection requires surrender. He understands that walls protect, but also isolate. His distance taught him that emotional safety is not found in withdrawal, but in the courage to stay open. Psychologically, transformation through solitude happens when reflection becomes integration. The mind processes experience, but the heart absorbs meaning. During absence, he has integrated both, the rational understanding of what happened and the emotional depth of what was felt. He begins to align the two. When he returns, he does not seek control, he seeks connection from a place of clarity. The energy around him feels steadier, quieter, more intentional. He does not need to prove, he only wishes to be understood. Sometimes, his return is not marked by words like, "I missed you," or "I was wrong." Instead, it shows in his actions. The effort he now makes without being asked. The patience he brings into conversation, the consistency that was once missing. He no longer avoids emotional depth because he has already faced it alone. The solitude forced him to see himself truthfully, and that self-awareness becomes the foundation of his changed energy. The man who returns is not simply looking for comfort. He is seeking alignment. There is something sacred in the masculine return. It is not driven by impulse. It is the product of inner reorganization. He has dismantled parts of himself, the pride, the defensiveness, the denial, and rebuilt from a place of quiet truth. The act of returning is not just about reconciliation, it is about integration. He has come to understand that love is not about control, but about presence. That connection cannot thrive where fear leads. That missing someone was not just longing for them, but longing for the part of himself that could feel deeply. When he returns, he brings with him lessons that cannot be learned through words, lessons born of absence, silence, and reflection. He has faced his own shadows, sat with his discomfort, and allowed time to refine his perception. The man who once withdrew to avoid feeling has now discovered that stillness does not numb, it reveals. Every thought, every regret, every longing has shaped him into a more conscious version of himself. The distance has humbled him, taught him the fragility of connection and the strength it takes to nurture it. He returns not to relive the past, but to rebuild from understanding. He no longer views emotion as weakness or communication as surrender. He understands that true strength lies in vulnerability, in being able to feel deeply and still stand firm. His energy now carries depth. His presence feels anchored. What once felt confusing within him now feels clear. He has learned that absence does not erase love, it deepens it. So when he returns, his presence feels different. The same eyes now hold recognition. The same silence now feels peaceful instead of distant. The same man, yet not the same. He has walked through the quiet corridors of his own heart and returned with wisdom written in his stillness. The return is not about starting over, it is about continuing with awareness. He has learned that love matures not through comfort, but through reflection. And that missing someone was never just about longing for another, but about awakening the truth within himself that only distance could reveal.